There's a piece in the New York Times today. The lowest point in my lifetime, how 14 independent voters feel about America.
Hell yeah!
And this is classic. This is Patrick Healy and Adrian Rivera. The New York Times did a focus group with 14 undecided independent voters, run by Frank Luntz. So that's how you know it's
we
it's
love
the Luntz.
Luntz, don't we, folks? You know what? A Luntz focus group, that's as good as it gets for me.
Yeah.
Put it on the 70-inch plastic screen with some pasta bolognese and Diet Coke.
It's the closest thing you can get to going up to a Labrador Retriever and being like, "What do you think of the president?"
Yeah.
Where are you at on taxes?
Okay, so let's just begin. It says, how do independent voters feel about President Biden and America after his first year in office? Let's put it this way. His weak approval ratings might go up if he pulled a Trump and just declared that America was moving on from the pandemic and he was going all in against inflation and high gas prices. Never mind about voting rights or another January 6th. It's the economy, Joe. So it seemed listening to a new Times opinion focus group with 14 independent voters who are far more worried about their finances than COVID's impact, as the transcript of the conversation below shows. Asked what they held Mr. Biden responsible for and what they would tell him if they had the chance, the independents emphasized energy prices, the economy, and the importance of being a moderate, as well as a desire to avoid COVID mandates and lockdowns. The virus might not be done with America, but several of these independents are done with the virus. So this is Frank Luntz, and like this is interesting because it's like it's a Frank Luntz fucking push-pull fucking focus group, like, so you can't take it too seriously, but I do appreciate this view into the minds of people that, like, these are not people who politics work for, but like the presentation of politics is for their benefit.
Right.
These are the mythical people that are always being courted. These are the people who they love voting and their votes do decide elections. And what comes across here is that, like, claiming that you're an independent just basically means that you're a Republican. And it's just like the thing, and like it's not like you're an ideological like conservative, but like the constellation of like contradictory and just beliefs that you have and imbibe. You're just like, someone should do something about gas prices or inflation. And this always reminds me of the focus group when they test the Poochie on Itchy and Scratchy, and they're just screaming at the kids because, like, you fucking idiot, you're a kid, you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
But
they have a consumer-based approach to government. Like, what will make my consumer experience as an American citizen most pleasant? And that means it's through things like gas prices and stuff that, like, they have a direct intersection with. Like, more abstract stuff to them doesn't really read at all. Like, they are pandered to throughout their entire life as consumers, and that applies to politics as well. And that is a reactionary framework. That always does help, like, the right, because the assumption there is the post-70s, neoliberal assumption that the government is here to serve you in that way, not to, like, contribute to any kind of greater good or ask anything of you. It's to give you the most frictionless transactions possible.
Well, let's jump into the transcript here. So Frank Luntz, the Luntz, he opens it up with, "Give me a word or a phrase to describe life in America today." Scott, who is 53, white, from Florida, and works in healthcare, says divided. Janet, who is 66, white, lives in Ohio, and works in customer service, says dismal. Julia.
She lives in Ohio.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Julia, who is 50, white, from Illinois, and a small business owner, says disappointment. Don, who is 36, multiracial, lives from Georgia, and is an elementary school educator, says indescribable.
He should have just said pass.
Yeah. Tanae, who is 44, black, and from California, and the director of security dispatch, says new normal. That's the phrase.
Damn.
New normal.
Ooh, he was like looking at everyone go, and he heard indescribable, and he's like, "Oh, they've upped the ante. All right, I really gotta show him something here."
Nick, who is 43, white, from Pennsylvania, and a merchandise designer, says burned out. Azaria, who is 38, black, from New York, and works in hospitality, says stressful. And Travis, who is 45, white, from Kansas, and works in corporate finance, says lost. So Frank Luntz says, sounds like things are pretty tough for the country. Do you guys agree with that? What's going on here? Tanae says, I said new normal. So let me explain that.
Okay.
We have never as a nation experienced anything like this as far as the virus, the variants of it. So it causes a lot of chaos. There's misinformation out there. I think it causes a lot of people to be angry. There's more domestic violence. There's more road rage. There's more killings.
True.
There's a lot that's happening because people don't know how to actually deal with this, or they're in disbelief.
Correct.
I mean, that's a pretty
Very
accurate
that's
assumption.
true.
And it's like I say, like when you read these people's like their assessment of like American life, it's like they're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like it just what links up in their heads is very different than like I mean these are the people who matter. I mean, they don't matter in politics. These are the people for who politics is performed for.
Right. This is the imagined audience.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's what makes it so frustrating, because it's the imagined audience for political people to fashion their messages and stuff, but they have a fundamentally different like understanding of what those words even mean and like what politics is than the people making it. So it really is like trying to communicate with the aliens from fucking Arrival. And then that's their entire like there's people being paid millions of dollars in DC to be like the whisperers, when just by the fact that they're there means that they really fundamentally cannot relate to these concepts in a way that regular people do. But that's not going to stop them from trying. God bless them.
Nick says, we've been promised a lot by past politicians, and it just seems that nothing ever changes.
Correct.
I mean, once again, like
ding,
accurate.
ding.
Yeah. Janet says it changes. It gets worse.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
once again,
I mean, like
true.
The souls and wisdom of the common people seem to be, more attuned to our reality than the people who pander to them.
It's right. Yeah, because they're not feeding all of events through a political lens of like, well, yes, this bad thing is happening, but it's because of those other guys that I hate or whatever the fuck. They just noticed the secular trend of shittiness. They haven't created a narrative out of it where actually, no, this is like temporary and we're going to get it back next time when we win the election or whatever the fuck. Or we just need 85 Democrats and that's going to take care of it.
Janet says, yes, it changes. It gets worse. I have a grandson. He's on the autism spectrum, and I'm worried about what's happening at school. Do you wear a mask? Don't you wear a mask? I don't know what the future holds. It's scary. And I'm 66, so I've seen this country in a lot of ups and downs, and I feel that this is the lowest point in my lifetime.
Well, in her case, though, part of that is just because she's old, and that sucks. It's not fun. Being old and near death is bad. People don't like that. So they tend to think that the time when they're old is the worst time ever, simply because for them, it literally is, because they're old. She's going to die.
What if you're really into sitting down, though? That's all you do.
That is true.
You practically sleep sitting down when you're old.
That's true.
Some people
they have those beds.
Yeah.
They have the Craftmatic beds that allow you to sleep sitting up or sleep sitting.
Yeah. I know that reproductive freedom is a hot button issue. Well, some people say life doesn't begin until 60. And I wonder if she says that. That's what I would say to her if I was in the polling group.
So Franklin says, raise your hands if you agree with that statement, that this is the lowest point in your lifetime. 6 of the 14 raised their hands. Alice, who is 60, Latina, lives in New York and is a supervisor for homeless services, says, I think they've taken us back to caveman time, where you would walk around with a club. I want what you have. You're not even safe to walk around and go to the train station because someone might throw you off the train, okay? It's a regression. Jim, 59, who is Asian from California and an office manager, says, we're being tested and everyone is uncertain. Dickie, who is 38, white, from Texas and a financial analyst, says, when Alice was talking about the caveman thing, I can agree with that. I've had my bike stolen here in Austin in a very gentrified neighborhood 4 different times in the last 7 to 8 months. Things are kind of chaotic. I feel like there's no rules, really. How do you get his bike back? I mean, is he just buying new bikes all the time?
I think he's
bikes?
buying new bikes, and I also think he's just trying to impress Alice. I can tell when you're saying something just because a girl said it. Why don't you calm down, Jim?
I like
this. Jim. This is why everyone steals your bike. They can tell what type of guy you are. You're desperate.
I like to think that it's the same bike, and he keeps getting it back from like somebody who says they found it on Craigslist, and it's the same guy.
Yeah.
and he keeps giving him
Buxton.
He keeps giving him a reward, and he's just like, wow, it's really good that guy keeps finding my bike. Good luck for me.
Len says, how many of you think that the level of crime is up in America today versus a year ago? 12 people raised their hands, all but Don and Scott. Julia says, I live in downtown Chicago. I'm sure you've heard on the news what's been happening here. The crime in Chicago is completely out of control. Mark, who is 51, white, from Texas, and a business manager, says, I think it's kind of common sense when you're trying to defund the police that you take away from their budgets. Logically, the crime is going to go up. Frank Luntz, who do you blame for that? Who's responsible? Christine, 50, white, from Arizona, and a construction project manager, says, local officials. Alice says, mayor. Mark says, and the DAs that are just letting it happen. Jules, 42, white, from Virginia, and a stay-at-home parent says, the DAs, yes. The DAs, they're just, I mean, well, again, like this is, like police departments now are telling people when they respond to a crime, I mean, this is true in New York City, that they're like, we'd investigate it, but it won't be prosecuted because the DAs will let the criminals go. So they're like, it's a form of like sort of passive non-compliance and a kind of like a way for cops to be on strike
they're resisting
without
any threat to their prerogative. Yeah, but then there is basically no actual defunding of cops anywhere. Cops, their budgets are up. Crime is up in places that have not had any reduction in police budgets at all. But people get frustrated about that and like, actually, defund movement's talking about moving money around to real useful stuff, and it hasn't even happened. It's like nobody's paying attention to that. Nobody's on your Twitter feed and is aware of the abolitionist literature on these subjects. All they do is they watch the news and they see there was a crime, and then they hear the cops say they're defunding the police, and they're like, yeah, they're doing that. And there is no left challenge to that, because it's all just messaging. It's messaging into the ether that gets listened to by a relatively small group of hyper-aware political consumers, and then just completely evaporates before it gets contact with anybody like this.
Yeah, Chicago, has an incredibly pro-police mayor, and murders are at a higher rate than they've been since like 1996, and that you can just say that there's like somehow been a successful national defund the police conversation to get around that.
And nobody
There's no
knows, because who knows? Nobody knows.
Right.
Who's
Right.
gonna go like look through the fucking books and audit? I'm gonna actually investigate that and see if they've defunded the police. No, they're not. They've heard defund the police. We should defund the police, and then they say they defunded the police. Look at the crime, and they're gonna go, yeah, that happened.
Tanay says, as far as defunding the police, I have to be honest, it makes me angry. You need to come up with another solution if you want to defund something. And I get it, because there's because there's so much racism happening. There's so many people being killed of my color. That is a problem. But if you're going to defund something, you need to have a solution. There is too much happening. Women being stalked and killed. There is a lot of child trafficking. What do we do about that? I was with you until you're saying there's a lot of child trafficking.
It's like, oh, right, this is just Facebook.
Yeah.
You're just on Facebook.
And and again, like you see a story about Jeffrey Epstein or like what he's up to, and you're like, oh well, yeah, like the heights of power. Like assuming child trafficking is rampant everywhere, but like once it gets filtered through Facebook, it's just like if you see a white van anywhere, it's trafficking children.
Yeah, right.
It's like they will steal you off the street and sell you to like the villains from Taken or whatever.
Have you seen that stuff where it's like if you see like a manila envelope in a windshield, that means they've marked your car to traffic you?
Yeah. Don, this is funny. Don says, I was actually on the end of defunding the police at one point, but here recently in my area in Georgia, crime has skyrocketed. We haven't heard from Don before. And like, did I mention Don? It doesn't say like what his job is.
Nope.
But he says,
I've not heard of
I was
Don.
on the end of defunding the police. It doesn't say whether it was a policeman or not. I don't know. Let me look up Don here. Has he been mentioned before?
He's on the end of it. What does that mean? He was.
Don is 36, multiracial, Georgia, and an elementary school educator. Okay.
Well,
Okay,
he's
so
the one who
he
said it
admits
was.
that teachers are cops.
Yeah.
He was the one who said it's indescribable.
Yeah.
He's not teaching those kids a
Okay,
lot.
so this is the Ralph Wiggum of the group.
Yeah, yeah.
You kind of
Yeah.
disregard anything he has to say.
Yeah, Don is sucking his thumb.
He's tasting the knob from the fucking itchy and scratchy.
And
focus group.
Don called Frank Lunt's mom, asked him to open the milk. Tough.
So Lunt says, are any of you so concerned about what's happening out there that you literally lose sleep at night over it? 6 of the 14 raised their hands. Frank Lunt said, what are you losing sleep over? Janet says, the pandemic. Who is going to be next? That kind of thing. What can we do to help? Alice says, keeping this roof over my head. I don't want to be the one to be in a shelter because I work for one on the weekend, a women's shelter. I don't want to become that client. So that was worrying me. I had to go to the doctor and get short-term a little medication. I'm like, listen, I need you to shut this down. Shut the brain down because I don't want to become a statistic like that. I don't know what, she went to the doctor to get a little medication to shut the brain down.
This doctor, damn, she found the last Dr. Feelgood.
Felix
Good
is
for
like,
her.
what's she from?
Yeah, wait, what's her
What's
job?
her town from?
What network is she in?
Lund says,
It sounds like she got like a benzodiazepine from her doctor, which is like, I gotta say, all sympathy to people who have a problem with that. I do not understand being addicted to it. It's like, to me, that's like being addicted to the feeling you get from like waking up from a 2-hour nap. I don't get it, but
kinda
everyone's
refreshing.
different, I suppose.
Luntz says, do you live paycheck to paycheck? Alice says, yes. Luntz, how many of you, by show of hands, live paycheck to paycheck? 7 people raise their hands. Travis, you indicated you're losing sleep. Over what? Travis says, just general frustration. I think it's the sensationalism the media puts forward and the fear-mongering that puts it out there. And I'm fearful for our democracy because of it. Patrick Healy, this is the New York Times reporter, says, Allison Travis just made 2 points. One is about the condition of the economy, and one is about the condition of our democracy. You can certainly be worried about both, but I do want to ask for a show of hands, which worries you more? The condition of the economy? 8 raised their hands. The condition of our democracy? 7 raised their hands. Julia votes twice.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine, could you speak to the economy and Mark, democracy? Christine says, my husband was laid off twice since this all started, and we missed house payments, and I had to learn a lot about the economy and waterfall payment stuff. She says, and waterfall payment stuff, and what does waterfall payment refer to?
Well,
You don't go chasing it. That's all I know. No, as non-homeowners, none of us are fucking qualified to talk about this. I have no idea. It's probably something to do with a mortgage. I don't know.
Well, you like, you get your mortgage, that's for your house, right?
Uh-huh.
But when you buy your waterfall, that's
Okay,
like a
I got it,
different
yeah.
mortgage. Yeah.
And now constantly inside, I'm stressed out waiting for it to all to happen again. Getting laid off and the economy being all over. Then you talk about supply chain stuff. I could use a little more assurance and plans instead of a lot of shrugging and saying that things are better than they are. I would prefer some straight truth. So Luntz says, who's saying things are better than they are? Christine, Jen Psaki for one, and some occasional media. And people on Twitter. So if you ever look at Twitter, that's just crazy. Again, correct.
Yeah, no,
she is
yeah.
right. It says, Healy says, Christine, have you and your husband found jobs? Did you find jobs pretty quick? Christine says, oh yeah, he's got other jobs. He got laid off twice from the same company. So this is a new company now, but it's all remote because we're in Arizona, and where he works is now in Washington State. So it's been very weird. Patrick Healy, is he making more money now than he was before? Christine, yes, he actually is. Mark says democracy is more concerning. Okay, want to take a guess where this is going to go? He says, I'm very concerned about democracy more than the economy. Mark continues, you see how the Democrats in power, they seem to be wanting changing the rules, voting rights. We can't win free and fair elections, so let's change some rules there. This is the one guy who's actually concerned about the state of our democracy, is that he's like, Democrats are cheating.
Yeah. No, this is like central casting Luntz group.
Okay, Luntz, if you could speak to them, what would you tell the politicians that they don't get about your life? Jules says, I don't care about COVID anymore. I want my kids to have a regular life. I don't want the masks. I don't want them social distancing. I do not worry about them getting sick. Franklin says, Alice, what would you tell them? I need one of you to shadow me for at least 2 weeks from paycheck to paycheck. Travis, don't be afraid to admit when you're wrong. Stop always trying to stick to the narrative. Travis, can you give an example of something you wish, of someone you wish would admit they were wrong? Travis, Anthony Fauci. I feel like he just continuously can't ever be cornered and wants to continuously move the goalposts.
Absolutely.
And that's in the name of science. And I don't think he's probably a bad person, but I can't stand to listen to the
He's a
guy.
demon. But no, that's Fauci. We've talked about how it's insane that he didn't like quit over the mask thing when it happened, but like he has had to be the face of this constantly shifting narrative, and he's always there, and there can never be any impression that he was wrong about anything. And so if you're not invested in like him as a totem of science and virtue against mindless Neanderthals, it just looks like they're full of shit. This fucking asshole up here is just like, oh yeah, nah, never mind what I said 2 weeks ago. I'm still a genius. I'm gonna save your life, and you have to trust everything I have to say. Yeah, they should have gotten rid of that asshole a long time ago. Fucking Biden should have fired him out of a cannon on his inauguration.
Okay, I mean, he asked for them to give them like one word descriptors of the Democrats and Republicans. It's not worth going through. Yeah, Lentz says, I'm going to ask you this question because I'm trying to understand you. You sound like you're independent because you reject both political parties. Not that you like them both and you want to choose between both, but you're rejectors. Christine, do I have it right? Christine says, yes, absolutely. I am so sick of the stranglehold duopoly. It just frustrates me so much. Keeps everybody infighting among the people while they all just go to their barbecues and cocktail parties and laugh.
True.
They just want the power. They couldn't care less about us.
True.
We need more options. Now, again, Christine, I feel you. But the thing is, when she's like, we just need more options. Like, if we had a parliamentary system with 4 or 5 major political parties, I don't think Christine would be happy with the results because I think she would essentially be complaining about the same thing.
Yes.
They're always fighting against each other. Nothing ever gets done. It's like,
right.
Well, I don't think more boutique political parties would fit the need of these people to be represented.
Well, because they imagine that that there is a version of participatory democracy at this point of time in the United States of America that would realistically center the needs of regular people. And that cannot happen. The power concentrates at the top out of centrifugal force. It can't go anywhere else. You'd need to actually decouple the political system from the finance apparatus that dictates pretty much everything that is done politically, and that would require a much more radical break with our traditions than adding a few more political parties to the mix. But if you are a regular person, that kind of radical change is not even really conceivable. What it would take to do that is outside of possibility, therefore not even worth thinking about or considering. So all you can really do is just pine for one more choice that will make you feel good. And that's the people who have succeeded in cutting through the cynicism and loathing and alienation of politics in the 21st century, like Obama and like Trump, are people who did it by appearing in their person, even if the party is still the same old party, as fundamentally a break with something.
Yeah.
As different. And that's all we could look to.
And Janet says, what she just said is perfectly correct. I try to vote on policy and not look at the parties because the parties are what's killing us. They can't compromise. Jim says, stand up for what you believe, both sides. You can't be too liberal. And if you don't agree with your party, speak up. If you can't be honest with yourself, then people see through that. We deserve better in politics. Patrick Healy says, we're going to turn now to President Biden and want to talk about his first year in office.
We're here to turn to President Joe Brandon.
Can I get a word or phrase that describes President Biden?
Does anyone say Joe Brandon? I hope someone says Brandon.
I'm just
going
to go through it.
Brandon?
Just calmness.
Facts.
Out of touch. Incoherent. Reasonable. Functional adult. Pathetic. Clueless. Detached. Puppet. Complete disaster. Spaced out.
I think it would be a very powerful statement if they did a video where Biden has all these words written on his face. Like a TikTok.
Like an anti-bullying TikTok?
Yeah, it's like these are all the things. Well, not even anti-bullying, just like these are all the things people perceive me as. Out of touch, as Brandon, as an adult. And I'm all these things. I'm Brandon and I'm Joe.
Luntz says, tell me the best thing about Joe Biden. What has he brought to Washington in the last year? Don said, I said functioning adult because I haven't seen that in the past 4 years. I've seen someone who really decimates anyone that's not like him. Alice says the distributions of those vaccines. They became more available whether we agreed to the vaccine or not. We've been able to have access as quickly as we do and in different neighborhoods. I mean, this is I bet you Alice is against the vaccine, but she's I really support Joe Biden making it available to everyone in many neighborhoods.
Also, that's he became president when the vaccines were available. That's why they're available now. If Trump had gotten reelected, they still would have been ruled out the same exact time. It's like you're fucking blaming him or you're giving him credit for a fucking eclipse.
That is the perfect stupid American opinion. Like everything about it. The part where it's like a cargo cult, where it's like, well, yeah, no, he like made the vaccines. He made more of them. The part where it's like, I don't really agree with it, but I think they're a microchip, but you can get them anywhere. Like everything about it, it's great. That's like,
I mean,
who is an American?
If you want to be tracked with the mark of the beast, you can get it at Walgreens and respect.
yeah. That is, yeah.
My favorite reply though was Christine just says, and this is again in response to the question, what's the best thing about Joe Biden? What has he brought to Washington in the last year? Christine just says, corn pop story was funny.
Love you, Christine.
Again, Christine, correct.
Correct. Christine's my favorite by far.
Christine's
Absolutely
really,
dingers. Corn pop story, that
Awesome
was
story.
very funny.
Skipping ahead, Patrick Healy says, let me get a show of hands. Are you confident that President Biden and his team can get COVID under control during his term in office? Jim, Dickie, and Alice raised their hands. And how many of you don't believe that they can get it under control? Scott, Janet, Christine, Jules, Julia, Don, Tanae, Mark, Nick, Azaria, and Travis raised their hands. Travis says, you can't control a virus. Alex says, exactly. And I gotta say, they're not wrong about that.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, okay, like, theoretically, we could have done more to control the virus, but they're like, realistically, there's not much any government can do in the best possible circumstances or policies to totally contain the spread of a respiratory virus that is this infectious.
Right.
But the thing is, the funny thing, like, if Biden had implemented those measures, all of these same people would be complaining about it.
No, you cannot win.
The porridge is never the right temperature in America.
Patrick Healy, can I hear from someone who voted for Biden in 2020 who does not want him to run again? Why is that? Alice says he's too old. Scott says both parties can put better people to run than the two that we're getting. It's really sad. I think Beto O'Rourke is a good choice, or Buttigieg is a good choice. I think Kinzinger is a good choice. Fred Upton, Tom Rice, Doug Ducey.
Oh my God!
What the fuck?
Did this guy spring fully formed from the head of David Brooks?
Dude, does he follow minor league Congress?
Yeah.
The fuck is
Doug
this
Ducey,
farm team?
Tom Rice, Fred Upton. I've never heard of these people.
Fred Upton is Kate Upton's dad, I think.
Oh, really?
No,
Yeah,
uncle.
Or uncle, yeah.
Uncle? Okay.
And Upton and Kinzinger are both like anti-Trump Republicans in the House.
Okay.
And of course, they're both leaving the House because that's not a tenable position. So this guy is like a never Trumper, basically, but like a kind of like a centrist one, or like, well, he'll vote for Democrats too. He's like the ideal American voter. He is the guy who everybody who writes columns about what the party should do is imagining is this dude. He is going to be shot with a fucking trank dart after this and taken to be studied and cloned by the fucking.
Where do you hear
by the
Dickie's
New York
response?
Times editorial board?
And this guy would be properly numerically representative of American voters if there was still one of him, but 1,000 people in this group.
Yeah.
Dickie says, I would like to see someone. Beto O'Rourke, he's from my home state. I loved Mitt Romney. He seemed down the middle. Christine says, I'd like a woman, maybe Tulsi Gabbard. Scott says Gretchen Whitmer. They're just naming women now.
Damn.
They just like
They love females.
and like they're like I mean I know Christine and Scott. I don't know if they said it earlier, but like these are the same people that are like, again, their perception of how crummy and shitty everything in it is correct, and more correct than the people asking them these questions.
100%.
Like their perception of the world or whatever. But then they're like the same people who are like, I vote on policy. I really like Pete Buttigieg, but Mitt Romney, I love him too. They both seem down the middle.
Yeah. Like if you got them, you would get anything else than what we have now. Like they are avatars of they're just the most like inoffensive meatball or oatmeal version of the shit stew that they've been pouring down your gullet your entire life.
And I do like when they say I'd like a woman, and they just start naming women that they think of. Gretchen Whitmer and Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. Well, like I like Beto because he's from my home state, and then he might as well have been like, and I like Mitt Romney because he's from a different state that I don't usually think of. Like, it's
it's a
awesome
little treat
answers.
sometimes. Where I see, Mitt Romney, and then I think of Utah, and I'm like, oh yeah, Utah's there.
Yeah, because like I'll be honest, I don't remember all the states.
Okay, so Luntz says, okay, I'm Joe Biden. You get a chance to tell me one thing, and you only have 10 seconds to do it. What would you tell me? Jules says, no vaccine mandates. Travis, get rid of your staff. Azaria, no lockdowns. No more lockdowns. Alice, fix the crime rate. Jim,
Great answers.
take action and be honest and go for it.
Yes, sir.
My favorite.
Believe in
That's my favorite
yourself.
response.
Yes,
That's my favorite
sir.
response. Do it. This is really good. Tanae, coming out of left field, says, start regulating the ports. I could not have predicted that response in a million years. Start regulating the ports.
Does she think that our ports are like Barbados in the age of sail? Like they're all being run by pirate kings?
Mark says, get the border under control and take it much more seriously than you are currently. Janet says, please be moderate like you used to be, and don't tell me that I have to wear a mask anymore. Okay, Healy says, the anniversary of January 6th was pretty recent. How concerned are you that in the next presidential election there will be some kind of attempt to undermine the election, to change the outcome of the election, violence, or are you not concerned with that? Jules says, I'm not concerned. I also do not think that January 6th was remotely the disaster that it's being made out to be.
There we go.
Yeah. Just normal people.
I mean, at the end of the day, the people who want you to care about January 6th and be frantic about it and be anxious, their only strategy with what to do with that information is to try to get other people to care as much as them. And I'm just saying, from a pragmatic perspective, that is a hard row to hoe.
Look at these.
You should think about that.
Look at these assholes over here in the focus group. Ordinary fucking people. I love them. I love them. He goes, Nick says, I'm not too concerned. We've always had those issues with Chads in Florida. I like that he's talking about the meme.
Yeah.
Chads in Florida. They've been kicking sand in my face. There's always been questions about what's called into our elections and said that they were unfair. Dickie says, I'm only concerned if Trump is running again. I think our elections are safer now than they've ever been and more tabulated. Alice says, I'm not concerned. The United States knows how to lock things down. Just a second ago, you were saying you didn't want any more lockdowns. Shut up. Luntz says, I always do this. Anything you want to ask Patrick, I'll let the two of you. He does not know I'm going to do this. He's got to go on the spot. Julia says, I want to ask if anyone knows. We know that Biden is just a puppet. Who's pulling the strings? I would like to know. Patrick Healy, Julia, I don't think that's true. And it's not just my opinion. I don't believe that he's a puppet. He's, as Julia, who is pulling the string? Patrick Healy, he was elected fair and square in 2020, so he's the president. You're not answering the question.
Answer.
No, you can be fairly elected and still be a
Puppets
puppet.
get elected all the time. What is the argument that the 80-year-old man who is barely coherent in public conversation is actually directing policy, is like pushing a coordinated agenda? How is that remotely plausible? And here you've got these simple country rubes, the common clay of the New West, morons, able to detect, the drooling senile man is not in charge of the country.
Yeah.
And then you've got the hotshot Washington insiders like, oh, you silly peasants. No, of course he was elected.
I don't know if he's doing I don't think Patrick Healy is being consciously evasive or dismissive. He's just he here is Biden's a puppet, who's pulling his strings. And then his response is he was elected fair and square in 2020. It's those two things are not contradictory at all. So he goes, Scott says, this is the problem. This is the problem. Luntz, what's the problem? That people think these things, that the election was rigged, that it was stolen, that Biden's a puppet. I mean, this is the problem in this country, that people believe this stuff. Janet says, but he ran as a moderate, and he hasn't done anything moderately. It's been all listening to the progressives.
What would be moderate? What would be acting moderate? They don't know.
No, exactly. Because moderate,
It's
Republican,
good.
moderate is good, and progressive or too conservative, that's bad.
But whatever a Democrat does, Republicans will say you're doing progressive stuff.
You're doing socialism.
And things get worse no matter what. So you're assuming he's doing progressive stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
If he was
things
doing
are getting
moderate
worse.
stuff, my life would be getting better.
If he was doing moderate stuff, the gas wouldn't be as high as it was.
Same thing with when a Republican's in charge. The liberals say, "Oh, this is all conservative," and they're like, "If he'd only done moderate stuff, my gas would be cheaper, and my milk would be less expensive." There's no moderate thing. That's
Yeah.
that's just a feeling. It
Yeah,
is.
it's-
to
yeah.
use the term of the era, a vibe, and it is a phantom vibe. It is the thing that you'll chase off of the fucking cliff to oblivion.
So Scott says, well, Trump ran as the least racist person in the world, he said, and we know how that turned out. So, I mean, people say things. Christine says, that's irrelevant. Janet says, but he's been a moderate for 40 years, Biden. And then all of a sudden he's not. So something's wrong. It's just, no, you're right, Matt. It's because someone on TV said he's not a moderate anymore. And she goes, oh, like, well yeah.
And he was just some asshole for 40 years. Now he's the president. Now he is in charge of all the bad stuff. So why? You only have that filter to go through. Moderate is good. Moderate is never attained by anyone in power.
Yeah, no.
And so anyone's failing is their failure to be moderate.
No, you can be moderate, but only if you're a Republican
Out of power.
president in hindsight.
Yes.
Like George W. Bush was a moderate president now. That's what
Yes.
people believe.
Right, yeah.
But it has, once again, despite what these people may say, absolutely nothing to do with their policies, their messaging, or anything that has happened in the course of these people's lives that is affected or not by anything these people do in power.
Nope. The person in power is representative of everything happening in your life, mostly the bad stuff because things keep getting worse. Like even if, like a good example, that guy, the woman who is saying her husband he got laid off twice. Now he has a new job, making more money.
Yeah.
And like the lanyard types, the Iglesias of the world are like, people like to say America sucks, and it's like, but look at all the rich they are and how good the economy is doing. It's like, yeah, but that's not how it feels.
Yeah.
That's all that
like
fucking
even if you're
matters.
making more money, like the experience of being laid off twice causes a
like,
huge amount of
oh, I've
stress
got
and
this
anxiety.
money,
Yeah.
but how long is it going to last? Like that's a real thing. So even as the economy goes up and down, your general sense of yourself gets less and less secure over time, and it's the fault of the person in charge. And why? All you have, the only vocabulary you have to make sense of it is, well, there's good moderation, and then there is evil partisanship. And since things are bad, it's because they were being partisan. They weren't being moderate.
This is the last thing I'll read here. It says, a show. Patrick Healy says, a show of hands. Are you confident that President Biden and the Democrats have a plan to improve the economy, to deal with inflation? Nobody raises a hand. Patrick Healy says, I'm curious, what you think is fair to hold Biden responsible for? Julia says, definitely gas prices, definitely inflation, definitely the Afghanistan disaster. Travis, poor energy policy. Christine, foreign policy. I have concerns. But again, like, what are those concerns? Like, it could be like he's being too hawkish on NATO and the Ukraine, or he's not hawkish enough. Like, he's not standing up to China. Tanae says, inflation. This is my favorite answer in the entire thing. Dickie says, how we feel about ourselves. That's the thing you can hold Biden more responsible for than anything else. How we feel about ourselves.
That's correct.
But you know what? That's correct.
He's the rightest guy
that
in
is
the whole
right.
thing so far. The president
Christine
is
is the smartest
Christine
person
is the smartest
in this.
person in this fucking room, because that is, at the end of the day,
That is what you can hold politicians accountable
it's
for.
the only thing that actually, because you don't know any of the other this shit.
Yeah.
Like you can say gas prices, but gas prices is just the fact that when you go to pump gas, you get to think about how much it costs, and that makes you feel anxious and all that stuff. The president actually has relatively little to say about gas prices, and that's one thing that Washington smugfucks love to point out. Is like these rubes, they think they want gas's prices low, but they don't even know what causes it. Like, yeah, they don't. They know how it makes them feel, though. And it's like, so the president is there to absorb your feeling about yourself. And that means that he is going to just be this avatar of everything bad. But politics for you then becomes a quest to replace him with somebody who will make you feel good, which can't happen. They can only ever represent what makes you feel bad. Unless you stop trying to be an independent. See, this is the thing, and this is what's going to happen. Like, I know that Felix likes to talk about the 30,000 person election, but there's an alternative when you get everybody voting. Everyone is voting, and everyone is a fervent partisan, but they have basically turned their approach to culture and fandom into politics, and because that's the only way you can get any real fun out of it. That's the only way people in power can be on your side, is if you have decided that the fact that they make other people miserable and they stand in for other people's misery makes you feel good in comparison. And that's the only joy that comes from political participation. and these chumps are losing out on it.
Yeah.
So they got to pick a side. If they
Yeah.
want to have a good time, they got to pick a fucking side.